Mayor Garnes, I
Yes.
just noticed that the Pledge of Allegiance is not on this regular meeting agenda. I don't know what happened, but you could still do it if you'd like. I just noticed that it's not on the, I don't know what happened. Yeah, it's on the special meeting, but not the regular one. Not sure why.
Well, I wasn't concerned. I was not
Yeah,
really
okay.
concerned about
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. I will think I'm gonna allow others to do it too. I think since we aren't doing it all together.
We're going to do it all together?
No, I said since we aren't doing it all together, I
Oh,
think
okay.
on my other council members to each week for someone to do it because it's important to the council members. So I think.
Oh, that's fine with me.
So I'll just, we'll just move it around so everyone has an opportunity.
Sounds good. But watch me forget it in the middle of it if I have to do it, just because. I'll get
It
panicked.
is very unnerving when you're on your own. Because right in the middle, you're
Well,
like,
at least I'm
"Uh-oh,
not having.
what's the next word?"
So we should be ready to go anytime.
Okay. Call to order the regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Garnes,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Strand,
Here.
Councilmember Wilson,
Here.
City Manager Knott,
Here.
Chief of Police Connor,
Here.
Finance Director Dillingham. She was still driving, so she said she would tune in a little bit late. Community Development Director Caldwell.
I made it.
Oh, you made it. Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Community Development
I
Director
made it.
Caldwell. You
I made it as
too.
well.
You guys must have speeded. No. Water Roadway
I did.
Superintendent Johnson,
I'm here.
Wastewater Superintendent Taylor,
Here.
and City Clerk Dunham's present. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. Okay. Well, Pledge of Allegiance, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay. Now we're on to public presentations. This is a time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not intended. Items requiring council action not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. City Clerk, has anyone?
Yes,
Or is
I
it-
do have one comment, one public comment, and
Thank
I'll
you.
read it now.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Last year, presidential candidate Andrew Yang fought for the promise of a universal basic income. He was chastised and attacked mercilessly. Now who looks like a fool? The entire planet is in collapse. And what have you done? Universal basic income would put money directly in the pockets of your constituents. It's a simple concept. Those funds could be used for food, gas, internet bills, rental space, tires, personal grooming, clothing, pet supplies, and proper sanitation. The community could be required to spend the funds locally. We can save this community. This virus requires us to think outside of the box. We need more than masks. We need money in our pockets, and you hold the key. Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It's the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Signed, Gator on Davis Street.
Thank you. City Manager, do you see any hands raised?
So again, if you look to your screen, if you're interested in giving public comment, to raise your hand is *9. To mute or unmute yourself is *6. So I'll end the screen share, and anybody interested who's in the Zoom meeting and giving public comment, please press *9 now.
Wait for a second or two.
And Mayor Garnes, I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Thank you, City Manager. Now we will move on to the consent calendar. I'm going to remove item 3. That was a misunderstanding of what was needed, and so that there is no letter. I am not sending a letter to the Vice President. So that is just off entirely. So is there a motion to, or was there anyone who would like to pull any item off the consent calendar?
Yes. I'd like to pull item 1 and 4.
Thank you. And anyone else? No. And is there anyone from the consent calendar or staff? Hearing none. Is there a motion to accept item 2?
So moved by Johnson.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Second by Woodall.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I guess we should do roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Garnes,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strand,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember, motion, Councilmember Strawn, item 1.
So item 1 on page 2 in the middle, last meeting, city manager was asked if Danco had responded yet. And his response was no, nothing was received. I just want to be sure that this Danco letter is not falling off. Did we receive anything this month from Danco? Any kind of a response to our letter?
Point of order, Mayor Garnes.
Yes.
Proper to have this discussion at this time. The question before the council is this an accurate record of the last meeting?
That's factual. So that is
Fine,
it.
I'll bring it up later.
Thank you.
I don't want
Item
that
4.
falling through. My other question, which I'll bring up later, is the response to Mr. Johnson regarding the, on page 5, which I will also bring up later to the audit report and the response from Director Dillingham.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to on the items 1 and 4?
And on 4,
Is there a motion to approve items 1 and 4? On the
no,
We haven't discussed 4 yet.
I'm sorry.
so item 4, page 15. So I wanted to make sure that that address is correct. I'm not sure if that's city manager or Mr. Caldwell, if he has joined us. There is no 265 Ogle. There's a 265 Willow Lane, and there's a 275 Ogle. So I'm not sure on that.
Is there anyone that can speak to that? Is Kevin, are you on the line? Your city manager?
Mayor Garnes, I am on the line. The address is, I know it is 265 Ogle, and I believe I actually picked that up from the Humboldt County GIS. When the city assigns an address, not only do we notify the county planning department, we notify all the local emergency service providers. And that was the address that came up on the county GIS as 265 Ogle Avenue. It certainly is a Chittenden property, regardless of the address.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If I may address that, Russ Gann speaking. The actual deed from the trustee post foreclosure will recite the actual legal description and won't reference a street address.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments about items 1 or 4? To accept items 1 and 4 of the consent calendar.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Johnson. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strand,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Garnes.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Staff reports and communications. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. As you know, this November is an election season. So coming up on November 3rd will be our general election, which covers not only the presidential election, but also covers the city council as well. So 3 city council seats are currently open. 2 of those terms are for 4 years, and 1 of those terms is for 2 years, filling the remainder of Mr. Richter's term from when he was originally elected. So packets are currently available at City Hall, and so anyone can come and pick them up, but they are due back Friday, August 7th is the initial deadline. So everyone should be encouraging folks to go ahead and apply and fill out the paperwork at City Hall. In addition, we have the staff report from pages 20 through 23 of your packet this evening. I would just point out that, you know, staff has had a couple conversations with an energy storage vendor related to some state incentives for public safety power shutoffs, and we're hopeful that we may get access to some interesting technology to help the city adjust and combat PSPSs. That being said, it does appear that, you know, the city is on the Humboldt Bay power grid. Therefore, what PG&E has stated to the city is that if there are PSPS events in town, they are expected to be of significantly shorter duration than the ones that we experienced last year. So with that, again, the staff report's on page 20 through 24 of your packet, and I'll return it to the council for any questions.
Thank you, city manager. Mayor Pro Tem Woodall, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. First off, on our CSO officer, have we had any applicants put in for that position?
We're going to be scheduling interviews here soon, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to thank that we have the Public Works Water information and the Public Works wastewater. It's good to see that on our reports. I was wondering on the watering for the Public Works, when are we going to start watering at the north end of town? Our trees are dying. At the south end, excuse me, where the big trees are. They're beginning to die up there. And are we going to start watering at some point?
This is Randy with the street department. The watering system is on at this time. It's a drip irrigation system. So we won't be able to spray, and the grass is being sprayed with the sprinklers on the 3 islands that has grass.
Oh, great. Thank you. And then I had a question for Chief. You said that there was a house occupied by a hoarder who recently passed away. It does not appear that the family or the property owner are interested in the property. You mean that nobody wants to take the property or interested in cleaning it up?
Both. Officer Fielder made contact with a property owner who is apparently in poor health in Alaska, and he offered to donate the house to either the police department or the city. I guess, assuming that's basically the same thing. So.
Oh, okay. Can I ask you where the house is, or would you rather not say?
It's at the corner of 3rd and Berkeley.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
No questions, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you. Councilmember Strawn? Councilmember Strawn? Do you have any questions? Are you present? She might have walked away. I don't know.
No, sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
No, not that I can think of. I had something, but it must not have been that big a deal because I forgot. So,
Thank you. Okay, then we are moving on to presentation by GHD on the Water Infrastructure Improvement Project.
All right, thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. Just give me a second here to solve some technical issues. We do have Rebecca Crow and Andrea here to discuss the
Thank you.
the item today. And Andrea or Rebecca, do you guys have the PowerPoint? Do you want to do the screen share, or do you want me to do the screen share?
Kyle, this is Rebecca. I'm all set to do the screen share.
Okay.
The host has disabled participant screen sharing. You might have to let me.
There we go.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Andrea. Thank you both for being here.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying. Let's see. Oh, you might have to make my computer the screen share. I've logged in twice, Kyle. Sorry to be confusing.
I see, yeah. Okay, you should be good to go.
All right, yes, I am good to go. Let's see. Okay. So folks should be seeing my screen now?
Yep.
Excellent. Kyle, did you want to give any intro, or I can just kick it off?
Why don't you go ahead and just kick it off?
Okay. So this presentation tonight is informational. It's part of the environmental approval process for the water system project. So we've talked about that a couple times. So right now, there's a document out to review. On the phone tonight, I have Andrea Hilton. And after I give up a little intro, I'm going to turn it over to her. She is an environmental scientist who helped prepare the document and is hand-holding it through to completion. So the document that's out for review is the Water Infrastructure Improvement Project, Public Review Draft, Initial Study, and Proposed Mitigated Negative Declaration. So the project has, three major components. One is distribution system improvements. So that includes replacement of water pipes, valves, appurtenances, and new fire hydrants. So we've been working closely with Kyle and Randy on that component of the system, adding new fire hydrants to meet, fire code, replacing the highest priority water pipes that, Randy's been having the biggest issues with. So that's covered in this environmental document. Second is the Highway 101 crossing. The water pipeline currently crosses in the southbound 101 bridge and has some vulnerabilities. So the environmental document includes three alternatives to give the city flexibility depending on exactly what route they do moving forward. I think one is replacement within the bridge, one is replacement underneath the bridge, essentially in the same location, and then a third option is a little bit south of that may be a little bit easier to implement. And then lastly, storage system improvements. We're looking to replace the existing 250,000 gallon redwood tank at the Dinsmore site with a 500,000 gallon steel tank. And then here is, let's see, excellent. Here's a project overview. So you can see here, all the blue are the valve replacements. The red are the hydrant replacements. This orange here are the proposed new hydrants. The red sections are the pipe to be replaced. And then we talked about these three different construction scenarios for the pipeline under the bridge. So two of them essentially, replace it where it is, one in the bridge, one underneath. And then a third would come along here to the east of the existing alignment. And that may have some benefits, is it keeps us out of the Caltrans right of way. So we're investigating all of these. Then you see these big black staging areas. We wouldn't be using all of those, but these would be directional drilled. And so when you do that, you need a lot of length to carry the pipe behind it. So that's a project overview. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Andrea, who's going to talk a little bit more detail about each of the components.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Hilton. I'm an environmental planner at GHD working with Rebecca, and it's my job to make sure this project is compliant with CEQA. As Rebecca mentioned, we did do an initial study, mitigated negative declaration for the project. So continuing on, the distribution system improvements, the objective of these was really to improve the reliability and efficiency of the system and ensure sufficient capacity for fire flow. So there'll be approximately 18,000 feet of replaced piping, 170 valve replacements, approximately 30 fire hydrant replacements, and 30 new fire hydrants in new locations. And then, as Rebecca just discussed, there are those three construction scenarios for getting the pipeline from one side of the Eel River to the other side. And if you want to flip it to the next slide, Rebecca. So this is a zoom in of those three scenarios. Construction scenario 1, and Rebecca, feel free to mouth along here, would be up east or upstream of the existing 101 bridge. And the benefit of this, as Rebecca mentioned, is that it would stay out of the Caltrans right of way, which is always kind of, another layer of coordination with Caltrans, and also keep this project entirely on City of Rio Dell property and not require any involvement with the county either, with like a conditional use permit or something like that. Construction scenario 2, which is this blue line that that's basically kind of roughly more or less underneath 101 would be, and both construction scenario 1 and 2 would be horizontally directionally drilled. So it's well below the river surface, far underground. There's no contact with the live waters of the Eel River proper, would be roughly below the 101 bridge. And then the construction scenario 3 would be, it's currently attached to the bridge, would be an improved attachment to the bridge that would be more earthquake resilient, but on the bridge structure itself. So those are the three scenarios. Because we are still evaluating which scenario is most feasible in the best interest of the city and so forth, Fourth, for the purposes of CEQA, we went ahead and evaluated the potential environmental impacts of all three scenarios. This way, the city has its options open to make that decision in the future when it's appropriate to do so. But at this point, all three scenarios will be compliant with CEQA, and the environmental impacts of each scenario was evaluated individually in places where they differed. So you can go ahead and flip it, Rebecca.
Kyle,
yeah,
do you
go
want
ahead.
to hold questions till the end, or did you want to see if there were any questions on this component of the project?
Why don't we see if there are any questions?
Are there any questions?
I had,
Councilmember Wilson?
is this a project that's already approved through a grant, or is this one that we're going to apply for?
So a little bit of both. So we have a planning grant that's paying for this study and the preliminary design of these evaluations and the complete design of a lot of the other components of the project. And then the goal would be to get additional funding for implementation. So this work that you're seeing in front of you now is paid for through a state board planning grant. The intent would also be to get future funding.
Is that the one that was roughly $500,000, or is it?
Correct. You're remembering correctly. Yeah.
Because I thought that one was for like doing the whole water. Was a grant to do the whole water system, or was this? That's what I didn't understand.
Yep. Well, and this is just, if you recall the beginning, this is just one component of it. So if you this is the entire system. This is the entire project here. So it is addressing the entire system. We were just now focusing on the components up here. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think it does, but so there's more to come. There's more about our water system than these three particular projects. These three items.
So and Randy, speak up if I'm incorrect, but this project is essentially addressing the priority pipeline, valve, and hydrant replacements, to catch all those pieces that haven't previously been replaced, and then also looking to replace that section across the bridge, and then is also looking at storage. So there's some other minor things that I think Randy has completed on his own outside of this grant in terms of some SCADA and some treatment. Randy, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so this is Randy. So with that, yes, there was some SCADA improvements at the courtyard to get that up to date and working properly. I don't recall the other item at the moment. I know we were looking into the biggest part of this was replacing most of our 2-inch pipes that are throughout town, the ones that are most troubled. One of them that we plan on doing in-house is one of the upper monument section that's along the road. That seems to be a problem for us at that point. And then let's see here, a lot of this too was the valving, so we can actually shut down lines and do the service repairs on the laterals to the homes instead of having to do those live all the time. So with that, I'll return it back to the council.
So
those items are also in the planning grant that Randy just mentioned.
Yes, that's what you're seeing here is those items, and we're preparing the design for this to go out to bid.
All right.
Sure.
Do you have anything else, Member Wilson?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. The construction scenario number 1, going under the Eel River, is that taking off and landing on private property or city property? Who's the ownership there that we're dealing with?
So the final pipeline itself will all be either with city or state lands right of way. So you can see it would take off here and then connect over. And then this is I think Northwestern Avenue in historic right of way. So the pipe itself eventually will all be within existing right of way. When you install the horizontal directional drill line, it is preferable to essentially, if you recall when they did the big water project a couple of years ago, or this is very similar to the wastewater pipe that serves the irrigation fields, they like to weld it before they pull it through. They like to weld it all at once. So that's why you see these kind of staging areas here we would essentially need to lay back the pipe to pull it through. So the staging areas on this side are mostly on within the city right-of-way. We do think we would need some private right-of-way here for staging and construction, but not for the final pipeline alignment.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Woodall.
No, that answered my question also.
Thank you, Councilmember Strawn.
Oh, sorry, here goes my clock. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I did have a question regarding, so currently, the scenario 3 is where the current pipe is?
Correct.
And so in this grant, is cost going to be a factor in this?
Yes, we're evaluating the cost for the 3 options. In addition, there's, reliability and right-of-way issues that we're also considering.
Okay. Also, so when you go back to the other one, we're not talking replacing all infrastructure. It's just particular infrastructure. Is that right,
Correct.
Randy? Yeah. Okay. And
so
is
this
that
graphic, this graphic shows it. And so, for example, this is what Andrea had gone over, and is reflected in the sheet, is that we're looking at 1,800 feet of distribution pipe replacement is included in the planning project, 170 valves, 30 fire hydrants replacement, and then 30 new fire hydrants. So that's the basic of the project that was addressing the needs that Randy had mentioned.
So, I mean, this would just be such a great opportunity to redo all of our infrastructure. Is that like way beyond possibility?
So, and I can let Randy, comment, but the city completed a major upgrade of the water distribution system in 2006. So, over 6 miles of pipeline was replaced within the city system. That's where some of the original, directional drilling, I've got some great video. That's when the second tank that's installed there that the city has used. So a lot of that infrastructure is really not that old, and the city has really been diligent over the years about pursuing grants and replacing that. I think it was about a $5 million grant that did that 6 miles of pipeline plus hydrants and things like that. So this is trying to catch everything that's problematic that wasn't addressed in that previous project. Randy, do you have anything to add?
No, you've gotten that correct. It was 6 miles back in 2006. It was a loop around town with the HDPE pipe. They've done a few other lines, dead end lines. I believe one was Rigby. Most of the problems that we have now are highlighted on the map. There have been a couple of new ones that pop up, but we're trying getting all this stuff included as well. But everything was pretty much done in 2006 with the main focus of keeping the trunk lines throughout the loop of town was done at that time. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah. Great question.
Thank you. I think I've covered everyone. Okay, you continue. Carry on then.
All right. No, these are, I really appreciate great questions. Andrea?
Thanks. Okay. So the second major component of the project involves storage system improvements. And the objective here is to really improve the city's storage system to meet daily emergency and firefighting storage needs, and also that have these upgrades be consistent with the latest seismic building standards, be earthquake resilient. So basically, and Rebecca touched on some of this earlier, the city's estimated water demand, including emergency supplies, firefighting storage needs, everything is 1,250,000 gallons, which I assume is gallons per day, right, Rebecca? Yeah. No.
Gallons just total. Some of that
total.
covers like.
Not a rate. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And the Douglas tank number 1 is taken out of service because of its deteriorating condition. And without that tank in service, the reliable storage volume has been reduced to 750,000 gallons. So there's a shortage essentially. And so this project, one of the main components would be to replace the Douglas tank, which was a 250,000 gallon capacity, with a larger tank, a steel tank, that 500,000 gallons, to get the city back up to where it needs to be for its storage needs. And you can flip slides.
Are there any questions? Yep. Are there any questions on the storage system?
Council?
No.
Councilmember Woodall?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Garnes. The existing 250,000 Douglas Redwood tank, could we conceivably build another 250,000 gallon steel tank next to it, or is the Redwood tank approaching the end of its useful life?
It's at the end of its useful life. Like it says on here, right now it's not really being used for potable water service. It's really being used mostly for back flushing the system and just emergency storage. It doesn't meet current seismic code. The site is a little bit, constrained. I think, in the end, we're better to just tear that down and replace it with a completely new 500,000 gallon tank.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes, just briefly. So do we currently have 1 million gallons and we're going to jump up to 1.2?
Correct. But 250,000 gallons of that existing storage is, in that deteriorating tank.
I understand. So we're eliminating the old 250 and then we're going to add 500 in basically the same location and we'll gain an additional 250,000.
Correct.
That's what I thought I heard. So that's all I have.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks.
Continue. Andrea?
Sure, thanks. Do you want to flip the slides? So I'm going to go through 2 slides of mitigation measures. So there's this slide and one more, and then we can do, I think questions would be good at that point. So basically, the way an initial study mitigated neg deck works is that it's for projects that assume that there's a potential for some level of environmental impact, but we employ essentially what are standard mitigation measures to reduce any potential impact to a level that's technically considered less than significant, because ultimately we don't want to have that any impact on the environment. So these the initial study mitigated negative declaration is out for public review now. If you don't have a copy and you'd like a copy, I'm sure the city manager could get you a copy, or you could, we'll get you a copy if you'd love to delve into it. It's incredibly invigorating reading. But as a summary of that document, and for the sake of time here this evening, because you probably don't want to get to know us that well, these are the mitigation measures that I'll just kind of go through. These are overall, I will say, really standard mitigation measures. We see these types of mitigation measures on a lot of these types of construction projects, and with a construction project of this scope and scale, I'd say it's virtually impossible to have one that wouldn't require any mitigation measures. So there's, in my professional opinion, nothing here that's particularly out of the ordinary. But that said, the first mitigation measure, AQ, stands for air quality, as best management practices to reduce air pollution, and that essentially comes down to dust control. The North Coast air basins are not listed for any kind of major pollutants like you might see in a larger city in the Bay Area, but it is listed for particulate dust, and so this would be like water trucks to keep dust during construction, not leaving equipment idling, just basic best management practices that to me essentially boil down to common sense, so that we're not having any undue impact on air quality, and specifically anything that would contribute dust to the air. The second, bio, stands for biological resources. So most of our mitigation measures really fall here. That's pretty typical of projects in our region because we have a lot of biological resources to protect. With mitigation measure bio 1, the protection of special status plant communities via permitting. Basically, this means that well, since we've written this, we've done rare plant surveys and we know there are no special status plant communities, but in the event that we had found some, it basically means that we couldn't impact them, or if we did, we would have to essentially mitigate or replace them somewhere else. But there were no rare plants found. So moving on to number 2, the protection of special status plant communities via pre-construction surveys. Essentially, prior to construction, we would go out and take one last look at areas where rare plants would have potential to occur, and just triple check that there weren't any prior to construction. If there were, then with mitigation measure number 1, we would have to make sure that we essentially avoided them or replaced them in coordination with resource agencies. There aren't a lot of rare plant species likely to occur with this project. Number 3 is protection of special status amphibians and reptiles. This comes down to essentially frogs, western pond turtles, that are kind of state listed species, and making sure with pre-construction surveys that they wouldn't be impacted. Number 4 is nesting birds. So this is similar pre-construction surveys are pretty standard within a specific window of time between March and August, mid-March and mid-August. So if construction were to occur between mid-March and mid-August, then a biologist would go out and check the area for any nesting birds. If any were found, they would establish a buffer essentially to protect the nest. If any kind of vegetation removal happens after August 15th and before March 15th, this is not required. So it's a seasonal, it's a standard seasonal measure that's entirely dependent on when construction occurs. Protection of special status bats is similar. Essentially, it's pre-construction survey limited to areas where bats might be most likely to occur. Number 6 and number 7 address wetlands. So essentially, if the project were to impact wetlands, which in the city, it would be a 3-parameter wetlands, and most commonly they occur in roadside ditches when they do occur. There's also potential for some wetlands maybe in the areas between the 2 lanes of Highway 101. And we've done these surveys, and they're appended to the back of the ISMND, the CEQA document. But if we were going to end up impacting any wetlands, either permanently or temporarily, we would need to take measures to minimize and avoid those wetlands, protect wetlands that we would be working near but not necessarily on. And if we were actually going to impact them, compensating for the loss of these wetlands by creating new and improved wetlands, either in the same place after construction if it was temporary, or in a different location afterwards if it was going to be a permanent impact. So we can flip. That was bio 7. So essentially, if you impact wetlands, the law is really clear, both federal and state. You have to replace those wetlands, and that would become regulated with the permits from the project that the project would ultimately need to seek from the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under the Clean Water Act. Okay, moving on, cultural resources, CR 1 and 2. CR stands for cultural resources. This is pretty standard mitigation for these projects. A cultural resource investigation was completed for the project. There were no specific resources identified, but just given the general cultural sensitivity of the city in general, that prior to construction, the workers would go through a brief sensitivity training to talk about what to look for while they're excavating and what to do if they see something that looks like it might be a cultural or historic resource. And CR2 is basically the same thing, but specific to human remains. Notify the coroner, that kind of thing, and the tribal representatives. GO1 is inadvertent discovery of paleontological resources. And that this is a standard measure that goes in all of our CEQA documents in the event that they're digging is not necessarily cultural resources, but they come upon a mastodon or something really interesting like that. Unlikely, but there are certain areas in the county, not necessarily here, that's more likely to occur than not. HAZ stands for hazardous materials. So basically, HAZ 1 is to protection of waters from hazardous materials. So anytime heavy equipment or any kind of, construction substance, oil, gas, hydraulic fluids are going to be near water, standard protection measures to make sure if there's an accidental spill, there's a protocol in place, and protection measures in place prior to construction to reduce the risk of any kind of hazardous material related to construction entering the waterway or a wetland inadvertently. We're almost done here. HWQ stands for hydrology and water quality, and best management practices to protect water quality essentially deal with erosion control prior to construction. And there's some overlap there with the hazardous materials to make sure that the dirt and the digging isn't going to pollute any kind of waters. The only real water here would be potential wetlands and primarily the Eel River, which we have some distance from. And then the other one, the last bullet there that's really specific to this project is if we were to do construction scenario 1 and 2 and horizontally directionally drill under the Eel River, we would be required to have a horizontal directional drilling HDD hydrofracture contingency plan in place prior to construction. And that's something I believe the contractor would do. So lastly, moving on, thank you to being patient. This is the last slide. I think we can do a question. So the public comment review period began on July 14th. It's 30 days, so that will close on August 13th. Any individual or agency with any comments or questions can send those questions to the city manager, and we will review those questions and compile responses. And then the tentative date for the adoption of the ISMND would be at the August 18th meeting. And the document is available for review at City Hall during regular business hours, and I'm sure we can arrange to get you a copy if you don't have one and you want one. And with that, I will say no more.
Thank you very much. Well done. Council, does Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Woodall?
No.
Any questions? Thank
Nope,
you.
sounds good.
Councilmember Strawn?
Yeah, I am definitely leaning towards construction scenario 3, just because probably just wanting to replace a larger pipe. And it seems to me it would be cheaper, and I'm hoping we can get more infrastructure in town done. I mean, this looks like our opportunity to really get some good work done within city, and that would be fantastico. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks. And just so you know, that this is the environmental document and it gives us the flexibility to do any of those 3. So I appreciate your input, but yeah, we intentionally provided that flexibility.
Thank you, Rebecca. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. Rebecca, once the environmental document is accepted, what is the next step, and how long is it going to take, and when do we finally get to a construction project?
So I'm working with my team now, and we're very close to getting Randy and the city a 65% review draft of the focusing on the in-town components of the project. So I know that we printed a draft review set, I believe today, so that should be coming. And then, like I said, we'll review that with Randy and Kyle, get their inputs, run it by the Division of Drinking Water in case they have any comments. We'll pull that in, move that to develop a final plan set, prior to the end of this year. And then, the hope would be that then we're really going to start to be able to leverage that, the late fall towards the end of this year to start applying for funding. I've been working with Kyle on lists of shovel-ready projects, just really trying to position the city and be ready for any funding that may come. And this is definitely one of the projects. Some of the word on the street that I've heard, and we're actually, we've got a lady at GHD now who's, helping me to better track and follow some of the federal legislation, but having your environmental documentation done, I think, a key factor to getting projects to go. Last time I was there was that emphasis on shovel ready, and I think there was an understanding that the environmental and the permitting was a lot. They're more open to sort of design build. So if something came through the door, I think we're really well positioned to take advantage of it. That answer your questions? Kind of a long response.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Johnson, did you have anything else?
And that's it, Mayor Garnes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
I think they've answered most of my questions. My main question was about funding, and so that I see that's we're getting ready for that process. As far as picking which route under the river, is that something still to be decided by the city? We're just doing environmental preparedness for any of those three. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. City Manager, are there any public comments or questions? Or City Clerk?
None on
Karen,
this
why don't
end,
we
thank
start
you.
with you?
Oh, no, nothing on this end.
Okay, and again, members of the public interested in calling in, we have the call-in number up on your screen for this meeting. To raise your hand in the meeting is *9. To mute and unmute is *6. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop the share and see if anybody has raised their hand. Again, *9. And Mayor Garnes, I'm not seeing any public comment.
And thank you. Well, thank you both. I think this is receive and ask questions. And so apparently all questions have been asked in the moment anyway. So thank you both very much for coming, joining the Zoom meeting and giving the presentation. Really appreciate your time.
Great. Well, thank you. It was our pleasure. We will probably leave the meeting now, and good luck the rest of the evening. You guys take care.
All right. Stay healthy. All right. And with that, we will move to the accept the total compensation study from Koff and Associates.
So, Mayor Garnes, members of the council, just a quick clarification under the staff report, which is on page 34 of your report. Under the initial recommendation that the city council perform or do either of the three following recommended actions. Number one is accept the report. What staff would be recommending that motion, if it is what the council ultimately wants to do, it should be to direct staff to and the consultant to finish the report and present a final report in acceptance of the report on August 4th of this year. So that's the next regularly scheduled meeting. But obviously there are two other items or two other potential avenues for the council to go down, which includes requesting additional information and continuing the meeting to August 4th and or the earliest available time. And then the third option is also to take no action.
Thank you.
The City of Rio Dell's last total compensation study was completed in 2010. Compensation study helps to provide a professional third-party framework for compensation decisions in the City of Rio Dell. So on January 7th of this year, the council authorized staff to execute an agreement with Koff and Associates. And we have Katie Kaneko here on the line as well, representing Koff and Associates. And then back on March 17th, Koff developed a list of comparator agency council was presented, the council directed that Ferndale be added as a comparator agency. The draft report has been presented to the council here at 4 o'clock in a study session. So ultimately what we're looking for from the council is direction. However, we are going to go back to Katie, who's on the line. And because this is now, we're out of a study session, what we are asking Katie to do is to just go ahead and re-give the basic presentation and kind of update of where we're at. And then we'll go back to the council. So Katie, are you on the line?
Unmute Kyle.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and enable you to put up the PowerPoint again if you
Terrific.
so desire.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, and great. Everybody can see the screen. Good evening to the council and to staff. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Katie Kaneko. I am the project director and president of Coffin Associates, and I worked on this total compensation study for the city of Rio Dell. And I'm here this evening just to review our compensation methodology and the study results and recommendations, and then, of course, for action and direction from the council.
Katie, can I interrupt you for a moment? I don't see the slideshow.
Oh,
The
okay.
I don't know if I'm the only one though. You're on the wrong screen.
I can't see it.
No? Okay.
I don't see the slideshow.
All right, let's see here. Try one more time here.
There it is. Thank you.
Of course, sorry about that. Okay, I think I forgot to hit the share. Okay, so I will be reviewing the compensation methodology and then the study results and recommendations, and then the direction from the council on next steps. So before we can begin any compensation study, there are 3 elements that we work with the agency to determine. The first being the comparator agencies that we will select to survey for the compensation data, the benchmark classifications, which are the actual classifications that exist within the city structure that we're going to survey and look for comparable work on within the comparator agencies, and then getting agreement on the benefits data that we're going to collect. So starting with the comparator agencies, we normally recommend 10 to 12 agencies to survey. We conducted a analysis of similar sized cities in trying to get them within the geographic region. We looked at population served, full-time equivalents, agency expenditures, and cost of living factors. And from a broader group of about 20 cities, we recommended 12 that ranked as most similar to the city of Rio Dell in the different criteria. And then, as Kyle had indicated, the list was brought before the council, and we looked for input from various stakeholders in choosing this comparator agency, and the list was provided to council in March, and the city of Ferndale was added. So we actually ended up surveying 13 comparator agencies. When we select the benchmark classifications, we look through the entire array of classifications and choose those benchmarks that we're likely going to find in other agencies that represent the different levels of responsibility within service areas and job families, so that we get good market information to represent the various services provided by the city. And we selected 16 benchmark classifications to survey as part of this study. And then in collecting benefits, we know that each employee is going to receive a different benefit package depending on their own personal circumstances. But what we try to create to ensure that we're going to get an apples to apples comparison between the city of Rio Dell and the comparators is we set up an employee demographic so that we're collecting similar information. And in this case, we surveyed the retirement offerings at the classic tier. We looked at healthcare contributions to an employee plus family. And then we looked at various leaves offered by the comparator agencies. And for vacation, we recorded the leave benefit for an employee who's completed 5 years. So we record basically, I captured the 3 buckets of benefits that we focus on. They tend to be the higher cost benefit items. We look not only at the employer's contribution towards retirement benefits. For most agencies participate in PERS, but of course in the city of Rio Dell, there's a defined contribution plan. We also looked at Social Security, any other contributions, deferred compensation contributions made as well. For healthcare, we looked at the monthly cost for medical, dental, vision insurance for an employee plus family. And for leave, we looked at vacation, holiday pay, as well as any personal or administrative leave paid to the classification. So this slide is the list of 13 agencies that were selected for this survey. The city of Alturas, Colusa, Corning, Crescent City, Ferndale, Fortuna, Gridley, Mount Shasta, Orland, Red Bluff, Weed, Willits, and Wairika. Once what we do once the agencies are selected is we go in and we look at the class descriptions that are available and understand the MOUs and organizational charts, and we review budgets to see where the positions are allocated. And we look at your class descriptions and we compare them to the comparator agency class descriptions, and we look for 70% similarity by reviewing the purpose of the position, the duties that are being performed, the minimum qualifications such as education and experience, certifications and licenses. And when we establish that there's enough similarity to include it as a match, then we go ahead and record the top step monthly salary for that position off of their published salary chart, and the relevant benefits that classification would receive within the comparator agency. And often this also requires significant follow-up with human resources or even the services staff within the comparator agency. So there is extensive analysis performed to ensure that we have good, solid apples-to-apples comparisons. And so once we finished our data collection, we summarized the data per benchmark on 3 data spreadsheets, one that provides base salary information, one that provides benefits detail related to the match, and then one that provides the total compensation data. And what we found overall for the 16 benchmarks is that when we looked at base salary results, the city was 21.6% below the market median on average. And that ranged anywhere from 4.5% below market to 38.6% below market median. And then when we moved and considered benefits and analyzed the total compensation numbers, which are base salary plus benefits, we found that the results were a little bit more competitive in that on average, the city was 13.1% below market as opposed to the 21.6 when we just looked at base. And so what we found is that the benefits in general increase the city's competitive position. And so our recommendation in that case is that we would use the benefits data to make future salary recommendations. Of course, at this point, we would provide to the city market data reference points. In this case, if we use total compensation, we multiply the percentage that the city was above or below total compensation by current salary to get a recommended salary based on market median. However, this whole report is intended to be a tool for the city to use to make future decisions. And so fiscal sustainability, as well as recruitment and retention experience, should go into eventually setting a compensation philosophy that meets the needs of the city. And what we've done is we've created a salary structure that can be utilized, and have gone through a process of placing the job classifications within that salary structure based on a philosophy of the market median. But of course, the city will need to decide what philosophy is appropriate for them ultimately. And then once the classification is placed in the structure, go through the process of determining actual employee pay, because of course this is just a structure that we're developing, and where any given employee may fall within the salary range or what benefits they receive obviously would vary depending on their personal circumstances or how long they've been with the city. And then once the structure is adopted, the salary structure is set up to be easily maintained, and then we recommend continued maintenance of that structure by applying cost of living increases if warranted, and any other adjustments through surveys. Most agencies try to conduct a survey every 5 or so years to ensure that they're competitive with the market. So that is my presentation on the total compensation study, and of course I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Katie. So council members, I will run down the start at with Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, we've already done the study. We know where I stand. And as presented to us, this is a tool that we're given to figure out our compensation for the city employees. And what I see is we're obviously low in our salary compensation, and that seems to be an area where we lose people. Make decisions based on that salary versus the whole compensation part. But inevitably we are low, and we're going to have to address that. How we do it, I see it's not a one size fits all as was reported to us. But we've been given a lot of tools for the toolbox, but I'd like to request a couple more tools, and that was along the geographic area. The compensation comparative cities are primarily all out of our area, with more than 100 or more miles away, except Fortuna and Ferndale. And as I shared in the earlier, I'd like to get some information from Eureka and Arcata, and possibly the county, on not so much benefits, but more on the salary sides of what we're competing with for our labor pool. So that's they said this was the appropriate time to request this as part of the meeting. And I also want to make a statement that I'm not minimizing the value of our employees, but I want to get as much information that we can have to be able to create a system so we can keep our employees and still be a sustainable city. And also the other area of agency was the county sheriff, to compare the police officers. That's all I have at this point. Maybe another question will come up. Back to you, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you. So we'll know that when we get through with the questions, we'll come back to your, that's okay. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Woodall.
Okay. I feel like we've talked about this is a tool for us to use. And I personally think we have enough information in this to perform what we need to do. And we have enough information. I'm hoping that the employees, and we might want to ask them, it was just this, do they feel like they have enough information by these, what are called comparator agencies? I feel like we've got enough, and it's just a tool to work with. And I'd like to ask City Manager, if we accepted this, I want him to explain what the next steps would be. And after he does, I still have some more to say, but I'd like to have him explain what the next steps would be.
City Manager.
Thank
Manager,
you. So, yeah, so
Thank you.
sorry, I'm trying to run the Zoom meeting at the same time. So, so essentially what the next steps are likely to be, it kind of depends on what the council's actions are tonight. If you want additional, if the council as a body wants additional information.
No, I'm saying if we accept this, if we accept this.
Oh, if you accept it, so this is really, it's not binding. This is here to provide a framework for the council to make decisions. So the next step, if the council were to accept it, would be as Katie discussed earlier, to kind of narrow in on your compensation philosophy. I think back in the 2010 study, if I'm recalling correctly, the council at that point in time opted for a general rule of 10% within the median. I believe that was the number. So they attempted to get everybody into that range of 10%. But in and of itself, adopting this this study, there certainly will be areas where it may not necessarily meet the council's view of the city. In that case, the council would ultimately can deviate from anything in here. It essentially provides a starting point for the council to make decisions based off of a third-party professional analysis. If we do go back for more information, and that's ultimately, it's up to the council if you feel that that is necessary in order to continue in the process. There will be a delay, and I will have to work with Katie in terms of how long it would take to generate those figures. There would be also an additional cost, so we would need to work with COP and Associates to identify how much additional funding would need to be made available in order to cover the costs of additions to the study. So I hope that answers your question, Councilmember Woodall.
Yes, and now I have another question. Is it appropriate to ask the staff if they're comfortable with these comparative agencies that we have listed?
Yeah, so the opportunity occurred back in when the meeting, at the last meeting when the comparators were identified. The employees, this is very much ultimately part of a negotiation, because it was the employees at the last negotiation who stated that they wanted a compensation study. So that was one of the requests that came out of the negotiations from last year. As you know, this isn't the first year that the idea of doing a compensation study was floated and rejected. So this year, what we're trying to do is follow what the employees want. So the employees, just as much as the council, may have additional questions. And so that's part of the meeting tonight, is to see if they can voice those questions and issues of what they see in the study. So it isn't just the council, it is the employees who play a role in this, who we want to be happy with the outcome and feel that the outcome is something that was developed independently and in a fair process. Now, that's not to say that a individual position that because the salary, because the compensation study identified a range within a certain classifications, and I'll give you an example, perhaps an operator position, which right now the top range would be the operator 2 position. It doesn't mean that the council cannot create an operator 3 position because of the technical requirements of the position. We know that we operate a state-of-the-art facility in Northern California. We were one of the first to do that. You see other jurisdictions all over Northern California now updating their infrastructure, spending tens of millions of dollars. We have some of the highest requirements in terms of the effluent that we put out in the river because it's fresh water. It's not bay water, it's not ocean water. These are fresh waters of the United States. They're very closely guarded. So we know that the requirements that our staff go through are significantly higher, and those are the kind of details that the compensation study, while Katie does their best and COP does their best to account for that. That's something that we have to have a conversation with the council and with the staff as to what really the appropriate landing is for that chain, if it stops at operator 2 or if it goes to operator 3. So that's a conversation that can happen regardless of with this set of information that is being presented. So I would just throw that out there, and I apologize for rambling. If there's any additional questions that the council has, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, now what I wanted to know is if the staff speaks tonight, which I assume they are going to be, I'd like to know if they're happy with this comparator agencies that we have here tonight, or I would like to know if they feel that we need to spend more time and money and go out and get what Frank wants, the county, Eureka, McKinleyville, the sheriffs. I would just like their opinion on that too at one point, if they're willing to give it. But as I said, I think we have enough information to work with and to work with well. And if they feel like we have enough information to work with well, I would be willing to settle for this. Not settle, but I would be willing to go with this. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. Twice in the last 4 months, the Rio Dell City Council has unanimously agreed upon who the comparator cities would be. And I played a little bit of football in my life, and nobody likes to see the goalposts moved when you're kicking something straight down the field. A little bit against, taking a great study that Katie and her firm did, and then in the 11th hour and 58th minute, moving the goalposts. I, like Mayor Pro Tem Woodall, think that we have enough information here to make a decision with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Strawn.
I do not believe that was a unanimous vote, but we could go back and look at that. I would like to go back to the meeting earlier in the comparator agencies. I do believe some of the staff did respond, Julie, saying they would like to see the Eureka and the Arcata and the Sheriff's Department, because that does seem to be where we're losing this staff too. And our goal, of course, is to maintain our staff. We want them to be happy. We want to keep them here as much as possible, as long as the city can sustain this. And the other point I brought up earlier at the study session with Katie was, it was too bad that part of this study is not the incomes of the city versus the labor costs of the cities, because, you know, we only have so much money. We only have so much. And if we want to remain a city, and if we want all these employees to remain, there has to be a city to remain in. So we have a star staff. I'm thankful for, we have a lot of staff that have been here many, many years. And we're blessed. We've been very blessed with that staff. And I want them to be happy. I would love to give them $1 million each if we had it. But unfortunately, our city is limited in funds. And so to see what we're really up against, if we're really losing them locally, that would be the advantage of seeing, so that we can actually raise our rates to that level. And maybe there's a way outside of redoing the study that we could look at that. I don't know. But that is my thought process, is where are we losing them to? Why? How much more are they being paid? What is it that they're looking at? And what do they need? Thank you.
Would anyone from staff like to make a comment?
All right, so I think I would just remind staff to press *9 right now if you have any comment specific to this dialogue. And right now I have one hand open. I have two now. So again, *9. I'm going to go ahead and start with Derek Taylor. Derek, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know, from what I gathered from this compensation study is it's looking favorable to the employees. I can see the concern for maybe wanting to see the competitive cities and maybe get some more information collectively. But, you know, as a whole, I'm pretty satisfied with the recommendations set forth by this agency. It looks very favorable. And like we had mentioned before, it is about employee retention and getting some of our lower paid employees up to a point where they feel comfortable and they can, you know, afford to live in the city they serve. And that's been my main goal, trying to move this along and helping those guys out, or those employees out. And we want to keep them around. We get these guys up to a point where they're trained. We can rely on them. They can cover for us when we want to take time off, things like that. So I'm either way, but I mean, like I said, I'm pretty favorable with the compensation study at hand. It does seem to reflect pretty accurately what we've been fighting for. So that's all I really have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have two other hands up. I'm going to go to Jessa Rigo. Jessa, can you unmute your line? *5, Jessa.
*6.
Or *6. *6, my apologies.
Oh.
Hey, Jessa, you remuted. You were *6 one more time.
No, she's good. You're good.
How about that?
There we go.
Oh, cool. Thank you guys very much. Yeah, to answer Ms. Woodall's question, yes, I do believe that the study provides enough information. I'm happy with the amount of information. I think to address Mr. Wilson's comments, You mentioned specifically more interested in the pay than the benefits. Anyone can look up Eureka and Arcata Public Works pay, or I suppose any of the public pay. It's all public information, and it's all Googleable. And I did. I Googled both of those before I even took this job. So I think if we really want to get more information like that, we can get it. And I wouldn't feel like we need to pay more or ask the consultant to spend more time to get that. And I'll just share my factors. I came from the Central Valley. I had previously lived in Humboldt for 10 years, absolutely loved it. Eventually did leave for family issues and for career advancement. And when I saw this as a career move that I could make and an opportunity to go back to Humboldt, it was a great opportunity. But I think you are going to be dealing with people with family in other parts of the state. So that could be a potential attraction to employees who might want to leave. So I do think that comparing agencies that are farther away is relevant, especially being an operator in training. It's not enough to settle down and start a family. So I'm not, that's not something that would make a young person put roots down in this area. So, moving to Arcata or Eureka is maybe no more attractive than moving to another part of the state. And then, just there's other factors besides money that make people want to stay or go as well. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
So we have 3 hands up. I'm going to go, keeping it public works related, I'm going to go to Randy Jensen next, and then we'll, Randy.
Thank you, Kyle. Mayor, Council. After discussion after the earlier meeting, I kind of concur that the compensation study that we currently have ahead of us is a tool to use. It does show deficiencies on where we're at and within our agency, and it shows where we need to improve. Whether we can do it or not is another story. I do understand that as well. Overall, the main goal here is to keep the employees here as much as possible. Retention, have competitive salaries within the area that we are currently in. I also agree with Jessa that yes, we can just look up Eureka or Arcata and not have to have the associate here do that legwork for us. So with that, this study that we have in front of us, it is favorable to the employees of the city of Rio Dell. I think it's a great tool to work with. And overall, I think we should go with this and discuss more on one-on-one with employees to see what they are requesting and what they are looking for within our agency. With that, I'll return it back to the council. Thank you.
And Mayor Garnes, we still have 2 hands up. So I'm gonna go to a mystery phone number here first, and then second we'll go to Jeff Connor, who I think is Sergeant Beauchesne, but we'll go first to this phone number that ends in 0391. Can you 0391 go ahead and speak?
Identify
So
yourself, please.
that would be Community Development Director Caldwell. I just want to say thank you for Katie. I want to say thank you to the council for taking on this study. I think what you're going to find if you include Eureka Arcata, Humboldt Community Services District in the county of Humboldt, that the salaries are actually going to be higher. For example, I'm looking right now on publicpay.ca.gov, which is published by the State Controller's Office for the Superintendent for Humboldt Community Services District, which is, I don't know if it's a water or wastewater, but their total wages are $96,800. Benefits are $40,000. So you're talking wages and benefits, $136,000. A meter reader 3 A meter reader 3, total salary 62,536, with retirement and health contribution another 44,000. So you're looking at $106,000. That information is readily available. I don't think we need to hire Katie and her organization to find these numbers out for us. If the council is truly interested, these numbers are readily available. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and then the final hand that is up is, I believe, Sergeant Beauchesne.
Mayor Garnes, members of the council, it's actually Chief Connor. My comment is just relatively short. If you do decide to look at the other agencies in Humboldt County, would you please take into consideration their hiring bonuses? This is one of the reasons I believe that some of our officers have left, is the ability to get relatively, basically an extra month's pay up front, and then over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, I think is quite an incentive for people to leave. That's all I have.
Thank you. City manager, are there any public comments, or city clerk or city manager, anything?
Start with
Nothing on this
Karen.
end. No,
Okay,
nothing on this end.
Thank you, Karen.
And again, I'm gonna just spend a minute or two reminding folks of how to call in and provide public comment for tonight's meeting. So this is a virtual meeting on Zoom. However, anybody with a landline telephone can call in if you happen to be watching on channel 11 tonight. So you can call 1-888-475-4499. That will get you to a meeting ID number where you would enter 987-154-0944#. And to provide your public comment now, you would dial *9. So *9 again in order to dial into the number. And again, this meeting is broadcast on channel 11 on public access if you happen to have cable. It's also broadcast on YouTube at the Access Humboldt YouTube channel. And there will be an archive of it available through Access Humboldt for people to access the meeting. So again, *9 if you're a member of the public and would like to comment. I'm going to return to the screen and see if I have any additional comment. And it does, Mayor Garnes, we do have some additional comment, it looks like from Sergeant Beauchesne. Sergeant, if you could unmute your line. You're good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So sorry about the delay in my call-in, but I just want to explain the Rio Police Department's position on the salary study, and we believe that that there's plenty of information here to start the process, and spending city funds on additional stuff is it's just not needed. And I thank the council for giving us a voice in this, but that's where we stand, and that's all I have.
Thank you. City manager, no other.
So again, *9, but Mayor Garnes, I am not seeing any other raised hands on Zoom.
Thank you. So at this time, if there are no other or statements from the council, yes?
Actually, sorry, there.
No, go for it.
There's still no raised hands. I apologize. False alarm.
Okay. Then city manager, the accepting of the report, that would be a vote, yes?
So the motion would be to continue continue to the next meeting of August 4th and direct staff and the consultant to bring back the final report.
Thank you. So is there a motion to direct staff to bring back a draft of the final report and continue the meeting until the meeting of August 4th?
So moved by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Can I just ask a quick question, Deborah? Does this mean it says on the list, accept total compensation study from Kraft and Associates? So does this motion do that?
What we're doing is we're accepting the draft. We're continuing it until the meeting of the 4th to have them return with the final version.
Okay, thank you, and I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Woodall,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strand,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Listening to the employees and their voicing of how they feel about it, and this is, they obviously are positive to it, and so I agree with them, and I vote yes.
thank you. Mayor Garnes.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all, and thank staff. Thank you all for participating. It was really appreciated and very helpful. So thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on to the Katie.
Yes.
Good. Shame on me. Thank you so much. For
Oh, of
all you've
course.
done.
Thank you all for having me. It was
Yes,
a pleasure working with the city.
All right. Thanks. Have a good evening. Stay healthy.
You too.
We will move on to ordinances. Second reading by title only and adoption of ordinance 388-2020, amending chapter 15, construction codes of the Rio Dell Municipal Code to incorporate California Building Code exemptions and to establish agricultural building exemptions. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully, can you take it from here?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much, Mayor Garnes, members of the commission. This item was introduced at your meeting of July 7th. I want to make it clear and very clear that this text amendment does not allow any additional uses. It allows for a permit streamlined process for ag exempt barns. And if you look at page 83 of your staff report, the middle paragraph, it basically says that ag exempt barns are a structure designed and constructed to house farm implements, ag grain, poultry, livestock, and other horticultural products. It does not, again, allow any new uses. It allows for a streamlined building permit process is all that it does. In addition to that, we're actually incorporating the state's building code exemptions within our local code. So if somebody goes to the local code, they can see what's exempted not only in the state, but in the city of Rio Dell as well. With that, it's a very minor text amendment, in my opinion. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, I would recommend that you adopt ordinance number 388-20-20, amending chapter 15 of the Rio Dell Municipal Code.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Council, Mayor Pro Tem Woodall.
No, he answered my question about it just being a permit thing. That it's nothing else other than that. It's an expedited permit thing. So that, no, he answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Strawn.
Yes, so I have a few questions. So Kevin, how does this benefit the city of Rio Dell?
It actually benefits our constituents. It actually streamlines the process and reduces their fees. There is no direct benefit to the city of Rio Dell other than helping our constituents out.
So you're just lowering the cost of the permits?
That's exactly right, and actually streamlining the process itself. It doesn't require a full-blown plan check like almost all permits do. because of the allowed uses identified by Section 202 of the California Building Code.
And agricultural building, other horticultural products, does this, we all know that ag includes ag crops, which marijuana is an ag crop. Is this allowing buildings to be built for marijuana to be grown within city limits?
Absolutely not. The council adopted an ordinance back in 2017 that requires a conditional use permit for any cannabis activities. So that would be above and beyond what's required here.
So how would that be monitored?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
How would you monitor that, knowing what's happening inside that structure? Since we're
Like we would monitor, yeah, like we would monitor any other garage or any other accessory structure in the city. Typically, if we get a complaint, we would basically pursue it through code enforcement activities. But we have no idea what's happening in anybody's garage or anybody's shop outside within their property.
So do you agree with me that marijuana is an ag crop?
Absolutely, that's been identified by the state.
Yeah, and so in this description, you list hay, grain, poultry, livestock, or other horticultural product.
Correct.
So to me, that's giving them a green light to grow.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm sorry that you're confused on this. Again, any cannabis activity requires a conditional use permit in the city of Rio Dell.
Well, we know that, but we also know what's happening in some garages in Rio Dell, and now you're wanting to put up a bigger structure with less.
They're allowed to put up this structure regardless. All this does is actually streamline the permit process. It doesn't eliminate the opportunity to put up that structure.
But under the current guidelines, what do they have to do now?
Under the current guidelines, they pay probably close to 100% more in permits, and we actually do a plan check on it. But we have no idea if they tell us it's a garage and they decide to do some indoor cannabis cultivation. Again, it doesn't change the allowed uses in any of these three zones. They're allowed to build that barn, that shop, regardless. They just have to jump through an additional hoop.
And is this, were any of the zones changed? Have any of the zones been rechanged in Rio Dell?
No.
No. So how long has this zoning been in this format?
This zoning was established long before I got here, so I would have to defer to the city clerk, who may have a better idea. I know that, in fact, I'll be blunt, your family has a barn on their property, I guess it's your former property, on the corner of Walnut and Davis Street. And so it must have been some time because that barn looks like it's been pretty old.
It's very old. It was there when we purchased it and it wasn't used, and it hasn't been used in years and years and years. But there's also a barn across the street that is used for horses.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of barns in town that are used.
So I'm just wondering what the benefit to the city is of this changing this protocol to so we're losing money and they're and having less control.
We have no more control with or without this text amendment. The benefit is, again, to facilitate and help our community members who want to build an ag-exempt barn pursuant to this definition in the California Building Code, which is allowed under a permits streamlined process. So that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember, oh no, I've forgotten. I've lost track. Councilmember Wilson, did I already come talk to you?
All right. Is it my turn?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. It streamlines the process and gets us going quicker. And it saves them a buck. I wish you'd have done this on something else sooner for me, but it's okay. I'm good with this, Kevin.
Thank you. I think I've gotten everyone. I'm pretty sure. Councilmember Johnson, did I ask you already? I got lost there for a moment.
Mayor Garnes, you did not, but I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Are there any questions from the public? Any hands up? City manager?
I am not seeing any. Again, star 9, but I am seeing none, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you.
And I see no emails.
Thank you, City Clerk. So is there, I have no problem with it. Is there a motion for, is there a motion to adopt ordinance 3838-2020?
Mayor Garnes, I would move for the adoption of ordinance number 388-2020.
There's a second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Whittle,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strand,
No.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Garnes.
Yes. Motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Strawn dissenting. And that brings us to council reports. Mayor Pro Tem Woodall, anything?
Oh, well, we have a nuisance abatement meeting tomorrow at 3:00. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. There will be a last chance grade stakeholders Zoom type meeting sometime in September. And if all goes well, we should be receiving information about the drilling program that is being embarked on by the consultant. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Strawn?
Yeah, so we had the HCOG meeting. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but on the 101 corridor, the acceleration decel lanes, they're currently in progress. If you've driven through the corridor, you see they're working. The SLU project is also going on, and a high cable project is in progress. They awarded tide gates in progress. The bid came in at almost half of the cost of the engineer's estimate. It went down from 9 million to 5.1 million. The first 4 bidders were all low, way low. So they're going to show approximately a $3 million savings that's going to go back to HCOG, which we're very happy about that. And the Indianolan undercrossing, they have a new plan for the soil consolidation, which was originally 6 seasons for the compaction. That's the soil to firm up. Kleinfelder Engineering came up with an alternating solution. They're doing what's called a column supported abatement. They're going to put in soft soil layers and bore down deeper with a load transfer soft firm. No need to wait from 6. So it's dropping from 6 years to 3 years. Caltrans has never done this before, but they feel pretty good about this process. So that project is moving forward. They're looking for a bid to be going out in the spring of 2021 on that. So that's very good news. And I'm sure Frank will like that information.
Absolutely.
The other Julie asked me about the other issue that came up at HCOG, and I think Mr. Caldwell, I don't remember if we talked about this or not, but the Federal Aid Urban Act and the Federal Aid Secondary Regulation implemented through Section 182.6. For some reason, the larger cities in Humboldt County get a larger portion of the income that comes from the feds because they were in a program called the Federal Aid Urban program, but that program went away starting in 2001, and they've kept it in force all this time through HCOG. So I asked some questions, and they're supposed to be taking that to the TAC committee, and hopefully that will be coming up. And I believe that Mr. Caldwell is our representative at that meeting. And looking back over why that is, that we will get an equal share, all the smaller cities will be getting equal shares of that money instead of only 30%, which is then distributed to the smaller cities. So that would be good. It's for fixing our roads. So anyway, they're going to be looking into that. So we're happy about that information also.
Definitely. Thank you for that. That was all good information.
Wait. I also wanted to know from Councilmember Johnson if he got his report on the audit report, that the questions that he asked when we didn't hear him. Were those answered, and was there anything that you wanted to report to us on that?
I haven't got them, and nothing to report.
Okay, so maybe Cheryl, if she's still on, could get that information to all of us. I would be interested in it also. And the other one for city manager was back to the letter to Danco. Have we received a response from Danco yet?
I'm not aware of one.
Could we resend that letter certified with a return receipt requested so we know they received it? And then maybe from there we can move forward to a letter to the state if we still have no response. If that's okay with the rest of the council.
Speak up and say, yes, that's good. I say, yes, that's good.
I'm fine with it.
I think this is something that needs to be agendized and not something that's taken off the cuff without it being on our agenda.
Agendize it then.
Okay. We can agendize it.
I'll go with agendizing.
And is there anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
A couple things. Yes, Councilmember Strawn, I'm elated about the fact that the corridor is finally moving forward. So I'm excited about that. The other thing I remembered what it was I forgot to bring up during the staff report, and that was to our city manager that him and I had talked once last week that him managing this meeting is I think is cumbersome on him as a city manager, that his job is to facilitate a lot of this meeting and help us through it. And it's taken a lot of his effort and time. If there's some way that we could do something with our staff to create a different moderator and take that burden off of him, I think it would be helpful to the meetings. And so I'd like to see us pursue that.
Reasonable.
And my next comment was on the HWMA. We had a meeting last week, and to all of your excitement, I know you're waiting to hear this, but the HWMA voted to extend their CRV buyback program or suspend it for another 90 days. This is due for a couple of reasons. One, the state still has a delay until sometime in August. And then the other part is the state ACWMA's certification to buy back the CRV expired, and the only way that the state will allow through CalCycle Recycle to be renewed is you have to physically go to Sacramento and set in a meeting rather than do it through Zoom. And they had it where two of the members were going to go to that were requested to come refused because they didn't feel safe, and the other 43 people that showed up ended up being quarantined as on a watch as a result of their exposure. So they need to work something out where they can do this over line. The other part is that probably Fortuna, what do you call it? What do we used to call it? It's Recology. It used to be Fortuna.
ERD.
Yeah. They're currently not buying back because of the state law, and they may extend theirs as well because this is fouled up throughout the state. So one thing you can do is still take them to Crescent City. The little agencies, because it's more mom and pop, they're able to take your recycle. The other thing you can do is it is recyclable. You can throw it in your recycle bin. You just don't get your CRV for it. So that's your option to let the state keep your money, but you can still take it to Crescent City if you want to go for a nice drive and turn in your recycle. You can go up there and get your CRV back. And that's all I had to report.
Well, thank you for that information. I wish the state would just stop charging us is really what, until it's all worked out. That would seem to be the right thing, but
they have a big organization to support.
Exactly. So I had a meeting with Senator McGuire. On Friday, we had a Zoom meeting, the mayors. It was myself, Mayor of Ferndale, Mayor of Eureka, Susan Seaman, and then the Mayor of Crescent City. And he was just really trying to get in touch with his constituents, find out what we were feeling in our areas. He wanted to know, he asked a question about the percentages, how we felt the percentages of people wearing masks were. He asked about schools and what different the different districts were doing up here. And pretty much he just wanted to know what was happening with us. He gave us some information on homeless, that the state has put a program out where they will reimburse up to $150,000 if a city buys a multi-family building, and not something you can build, but something that already exists to house the homeless. There's some homeless individuals, and that there's also another $60 million, I think $60 million pot to for the operation of that of said unit that you buy. So that's something that's out there now, that because the state has recognized that there has been an uptick in the homeless population, and that cities are being put under it. So that's the state's way of reaching out and trying to do something. So he is sending that information to us, the application forms, and so it's up to the cities, of course, if they want to do that. But that is an option that the state has put out there to try and help alleviate some of the pressure that all the cities seem to be under at this time. That's I think about it. I hope you all saw the comet. We went up on Monument. We saw it from Monument. Then the next night, we saw it from my front porch. I looked out of the window. I mean, I looked out, I went on my front porch and the comet was right there below and to the east of the Big Dipper. So that was pretty awesome that you could see that in Rio Dell. So I think that's pretty much all I have. Just wanted to share that comet story. I was so excited about it. But if that is all, if anyone wants to make a motion, we can wrap it up.
Mayor Garnes, I move for adjournment.
So moved. I'll second it. So moved. See you all in 2 weeks.